There are going to be deals that go bad. If you're an investor, you just have to know at some point you're going to lose.
If you have a big net worth and you have no life, you're a prisoner to the world that you've built.
I would pick financial freedom over net worth. Net worth is a vanity metric.
Let's start to wrap by talking about the future and like where you're being called to. So for everybody listening, Justin is a longtime friend, and we've had conversations on the podcast before, which I'm so grateful for. Learning from you continually, introducing you to people I love in the Front Row Dads community. And, I could do this multiple times per year, and it would be super enjoyable for me, and I know for everybody else as well. And one of the themes I wanted to get into today with you is just how books have changed your life. And that may be an interesting way to back into a conversation, but I was thinking recently about The Lifestyle Investor, and you just came out with a new edition of it. The book has done really well. 100% of the profits go to support an amazing charity. And just your brand, it personally has exploded over the last number of years. Your business is doing really well. And on top of that, and arguably most important, is just you as a person, you as a husband, you as a dad, your family continues to thrive. And so it's just always fun watching like the next chapter of Justin Donald. And so, with that, I want to get into just a conversation that you and I would likely have outside of the show, but now we get to have it with everybody. And before we talk books, how's your heart, man? How are you doing right now in this moment?
Well, I feel really good. I'm happy to be on the show. I'm always happy to be on the show. I just love getting time with you. So, and it's fun because we can talk. I mean, it's great. We're going to talk about things that we've probably never talked about, but at the same time, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff that you and I would just talk about at a coffee or grabbing breakfast. We have a nice cadence with our Front Row Dad band, which, Front Row Dads has been a game changer for me, for my family. And so I'm eternally thankful to you for starting that group, starting that business and building that collective of amazing men. But because of that, we have this cadence of once a month getting together and, just doing life. And so, right now I'm just, I've got a happy heart. Just had a birthday, just turned 45 a couple days ago. And, I always reflect on my birthday, kind of where I was, where I am, and where I'm going, and who are the key people in my life. You've been one of those key people for somewhere between 22 and 25 years, so I'm just so thankful for our friendship and just that we get to do life together, that we're both here in Austin. We get to hang so much.
Why are you looking so tan?
Well, I just got back. We did a family vacation to Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket and spent a bunch of time outside. And it was just a wonderful trip. It had always been on my dreams list to go there. And for whatever reason, we hadn't been there in a while. So we did this really fun tour of Boston. We flew into Boston, and then we went over to Newport, Rhode Island, because I had never been to Rhode Island, and everyone said Newport's the place to go. And then we spent the rest of the time on Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket, and it was just everything you could dream for. Wonderful weather, wonderful people, incredible food, great experiences for the family. I mean, I think our family would say that it was our best U.S. trip we've ever had.
Really?
Yeah, and we would go back in a heartbeat. We already talked about a reunion trip with some other fun families because it was just great.
Yeah. What made it so great?
Well, there is a natural beauty. I mean, I like islands in general, so there's this natural beauty of the island, and I'm a big fan of like architecture and homes, and there's some really cool homes that can make you dream while you're there. And I like being on the water. I love seafood. So, I mean, it's just so many things. And then new experiences for the family, and shopping. My wife and my daughter love to shop. I don't necessarily love to shop, but I love watching the joy in their eyes as they get to shop, especially my daughter, It's just, it's fun. So everyone walked away saying like there was something in this trip for me, and what a great experience and I want to go back.
Yeah. So cool, man. I love that for you and I love that for them. Sometimes there's surprisingly like simple towns, or little
Yeah.
towns, or something that calls to us that's really
Yeah.
beautiful. One of mine is and you know this, Shell Lake, Wisconsin, this lake, that tiny little lake in the northwest part of Wisconsin that my dad grew up on when he was a kid. And I have so many good memories about being in and around that. There's a little town there called Spooner. And it was
Hey,
just same
good
thing
name
where
for a
they,
town.
yeah, they have this like general store where they sell all this cool stuff. And I remember they're shopping on vacation too, also.
Yeah.
Like where there's a little extra space,
That's right.
maybe a little extra permission to
That's
get
right.
something for yourself. That could be really, really fun. So I love that for you, man. I love that. And I miss your family and I would love to see them sometime really soon.
Well, we need to do it.
Yeah, we definitely need to pull that off. You know, I want to talk about, I'll use that as a segue into like finding gems in your life, right? Finding like a gem of a location, a vacation spot that lights you up inside. When we talked about recording another show together, I said I wanted to hear about some of the books that were really influential in your life and that were gems that showed up at the right time, taught you something, lit you up in certain ways that have led to ultimately where you are today. And I know you brought a couple of books in, so let's just get right into the book conversation.
Let's do.
And the first one is The Almanac of Naval Ravikant.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this book, why it was so important for you, and why you chose to bring it in today. You're not like most men. You don't just scroll, you study. You don't just parent, you lead. And you don't just read, you implement. And that's why we made this, a no-fluff, battle-tested list of books that sharpen men like you. Picked by our tribe, proven in real life, these books are going to stretch your mind, fuel your growth, and challenge who you thought you had to be. These aren't just great reads. They're tools to help you grow as a father, husband, and a man. Get the list and all the insights that bring it to life at frontrowdads.com/books.
Well, you know, it's interesting because if you go back in time and, you know, if I really figured out where it was that I got into books, because I think books were a game changer for me. And I love film, I love movies and TV shows, and I love getting lost in stories. But the original story I got lost in was books. And so, you know, as a kid, there was so much I didn't know, so much I wanted to know, so many people in my network that didn't have the knowledge or expertise that I wanted. So at a young age, you know, my mom got me a library card, and I used to go to the library all the time, and I would check out books. I remember doing these reading clubs and trying to read every single book on these big reading clubs. I mean, I was doing that in elementary school. And so it continued on. And so I read cool stories. It piqued my curiosity. It really stimulated my imagination. And in the early years, it was a lot more fiction books. And then my love for nonfiction started to emerge probably, high school, college age. In fact, I just read Animal Farm to my daughter the last few days on our trip, and that's a really fun book because it is a fiction book, but it is telling, kind of a nonfiction story, right? Of what communism is and what that looks like, all told, through farm animals. And so it's been neat seeing how impactful that's been for my daughter. My wife is an avid reader. She can read way faster than I am. I'm actually a pretty slow reader. I like listening more than reading these days, depending on the type of book, because I can consume it faster.
Yeah.
If I sit down and read, I'm just a pretty darn slow reader. But there are certain topics or subjects that I feel like I need to read it. I need to highlight it. I need to be able to come back and reference it. So different genres for different things. But, since an early age, like that for me was, that was my escape. It was where I learned. It was where I started experiencing my first round of personal growth. And because of that love for reading, it's where I've discovered so many books that have had such a huge impact on me that it has changed the trajectory of my life, where I was headed, where I wanted to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, it's like if we were to do this in chronological order, it's actually Cash Flow Quadrant that was the first book that blew me away. And I remember reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I remember thinking, wow, this book opened my eyes to a different way of learning and investing. But Cash Flow Quadrant left such a mark with the actual cash flow quadrant of employee, self-employed, business owner, and investor, and how, the left side of the quadrant, you're trading time for money, and the right side of the quadrant, you're buying assets that produce money, or you're building assets with teams, with systems, with people, or your capital's at work.
Mm-hmm.
So it's earning a return passively, or earning a return at least not tied to your time. I think in time you can do it passively. Like if you're actively running a business, that's a little different. But as you scale it and you build systems and people, then you can really separate that. So like we can have this conversation. You and I have a business. Our businesses are making money right now, but we're not in our business right now.
Yeah. That's cool. So how old were you when you found Cash Flow Quadrant?
So Rich Dad, Poor Dad would have been in college, I believe, or it could have been first year out of college. And I think Cash Flow Quadrant was probably second year out of college. It could have also been first year early. Out of college. Yeah.
And then how quickly were you able to implement that idea of moving to the investor owner side?
So that wasn't an overnight thing, but it did get me thinking. There was a line in the book that basically said, you're not a business owner until you can leave your business with it basically producing at the same level or growing for a year's period of time. So remove yourself for a year. And so I had this internal aha that it was like, wow, I've been telling people all this time I'm a business owner. I'm actually not a business owner. I thought I was a business owner. I'm actually a sole proprietor. I'm self-employed. I have a business that runs me. The business won't run if I'm not there. So that's not a true business owner. And so then that's when I started thinking, like, how do I build the systems in my business? How do I build the people in my business? How do I remove myself from the business so it can generate with, income without me doing everything? And so that was like the first iteration for me in learning how to scale, learning how to hire well, learning how to put good systems in place that anyone could run with. And so, that really allowed me to take, my first business to the next level, but I didn't yet have the capital to put capital to work yet, right? So I was just plugging all my money back into my business. And that was great. That was a great return in that season. But the risk is if the business didn't go well, then I lose that, right? And the odds of a business not going well are pretty high, 95% likely that the business is going to fail in 5 years. So I knew I needed to diversify out of that business. And as I made more, I started doing that. That's when I started buying real estate, started getting into rental properties. And that changed the whole entire game. But I probably wouldn't have gotten there without that book. That number one taught me how to remove myself. So our business grew and I had more money and I had more time. And then with more money and more time, I became more savvy as an investor. And, it wasn't like an overnight success, but every day I was trying to get better. Every day I was trying to make a step in the right direction. I would buy an asset and I'd say, hey, I'm better today than I was, but how do I get that next one? And I would just keep saving up for it.
Do you, let me think about how I want to ask this next question. Do you think that book is for everybody? Do you think everybody should have that mentality?
I think the book is for everybody.
Yeah.
Now, is everyone going to gain the same insights that I, gained? Probably not. But I also don't think that, being in the employee quadrant is a bad thing. I think a lot of people are really suited well to be employees. My wife is a great example of that. And she would tell you that herself. Like, she is a great employee. That was a great framework and structure for her.
Right.
And it was good for her to be able to turn work off when she went home. And then I think for a lot of other people, it's probably good to realize if you're an employee and that's not the right fit, there are these other categories that you can move into, these other quadrants, and what is right. So I think it's worth the read for anyone, but for anyone that's desiring to really compound and grow their wealth and buy their time back, and people that want to truly pursue that, like take action towards it, I think it's a great manuscript for it.
Do you think it's a good idea for everybody who's an owner, or they're an entrepreneur of some type, to do this thought exercise of it? Maybe not even just a thought exercise, maybe an actual year. I was just thinking about this as you're saying it. Taking a year into the future, maybe it's 2 years down the road, and you tell your team, I'm going to take 2028 off. I'm not going to be around the entire year. And then it gets everybody in the organization thinking about what is needed to run this without John or without the person, right? Who's deeply involved. That's a powerful exercise. And it feels like next level to what Mike Michalowicz talks about, where take a month off and let your business go through like a cycle and see how it does if you're not connected for a month. It'll expose broken systems or where people might need support, they don't have it. But this year-long concept feels like a real litmus test to, are you really an owner? Is this thing scalable beyond your involvement?
Yeah, I tend to think it'd be really hard for someone to make the leap from not a lot of time off to a year. I think the exercise of what would the business need to look like if I did that is probably a good exercise no matter what.
Yeah.
But I do think probably, taking a week off, taking 2 weeks off, taking a month off, taking 2 months off, like, kind of
build your way up,
building to there.
Yeah.
And I also think that, there are seasons of life, and in the early days, it's hard to get away for that type of time.
Mm-hmm.
And also there's a joy for a lot of people, a lot of founders, in running a business and going, 100 miles an hour. But it's not sustainable. And in time, that passion will disappear.
Right.
And maybe it doesn't completely go away, but it shifts. It definitely changes. When you are single and aren't dating anyone, that's a different world than when you are dating someone that you care about. And then when you have a family and, you have dependents and kids you want to spend time with, like, things just change, as the seasons of life change. And so I think it's good to be cognizant of where you're at in that season, when it's wise to take time off, when it's not. So I think everyone's path and journey is a little different, but to answer your question, I think everyone would benefit from walking through, what does a year look like with and without me, and how can we build this business stronger, more from a system standpoint, SOPs and strong leadership outside of you as the founder. Like, I think that is a warranted and great exercise anytime.
Yeah. You've got a great team with Lifestyle Investor. I know they do a lot, right, to keep that thing moving. Do you stay involved because you just love it still? Or do you have a desire to test this 1 year off theory yourself?
Well, I really love what I do, and that's why I am involved in it, but I'm not involved in the day-to-day.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, at this point in my life, I'm not really interested in the day-to-day. I'm interested in bigger impact. I'm interested in, kind of big vision stuff, creative ideas, creating content, finding things that help people. So I like that. I like the relational side of it. We've got an incredible mastermind community, and just several different tiers of communities, under the brand of Lifestyle Investor. And I think that for me, I appreciate and love those relationships. I like teaching. I like learning. But I feel like our team is becoming more and more equipped. I take most of the summers off still, and I've done that, for years now. And even as our business is growing, I feel like we have the right people, and I can do that, and I can jump back in periodically, check the pulse, see what's going on, but not feel like I really have to jump in and do anything. Just kind of make sure everything's okay.
Do you think cash flow quadrant is as relevant today as it was back then?
I do. I think the concepts still hold true today. And I think this idea of, what do the wealthy do? Well, the wealthy buy assets, and they build assets, and they create assets. They build teams, and they use capital, and their income and their systems, their leverage. So the leverage could be systems, it could be people, it could be content, but they're able to build based on that. And if you are divorcing time from money, well, now you actually play in a playground where exponential growth can occur. As long as it's a linear relationship of time to money, it's hard to have that exponential growth.
If you were starting over today, knowing everything you know, and based on the cash flow quadrant concept, right? What would you do if you had 100 grand? Let's say 50 grand, right? You had 50 grand and you're trying to leverage that and understand some of the principles of this book. What would you do to build your wealth? What would be the first steps?
Well, it'd still be the same path that I followed before, which is creating cash flow. And with 50,000, I'm not going to be able to cover my lifestyle, but I can certainly cover some bills. Right. And so that's probably where I'd start. I mean, for the people in our community, and we do some really cool stuff with, we created this roadmap to passive income. So, anyone that wants to check it out, go to lifestyleinvestor.com/roadmap. And we just talk about what the wealthy do. We talk about asset allocation. We talk about the strategic ways of investing those dollars, the returns that you can get on those dollars, what percentage goes into each category or each asset class, how much money you would need to be able to earn a certain amount of passive income. And so, to me, it's just getting started on that journey. So, I like it way more when people are building cash flow than pouring all their resources into a single sole business, since the majority of the time it doesn't work out. We hear stories of the great founders that put it all on the line and it worked out. Yeah. But that is, it's a very, small percentage. Most people put all their money into their business and then their business shuts or it just is stagnant. It doesn't grow or it decreases. So I just don't think that's the reality for most people. And so this roadmap has a calculator. It has, like a whole session with Ryan Casey, my COO and good buddy. And I think that for people to just get started, I would pick financial freedom over net worth any day of the week. Net worth is a vanity metric, whereas financial freedom is a lifestyle metric. So if you can get financial freedom, this goes back, I've talked about this before, but I had financial freedom before I was ever a millionaire. Right. So on paper, I wasn't a millionaire, but I could live exactly the life that I wanted to live because the net worth didn't matter. Yeah. The tangible element of utilizing cash today, I actually had utility in my dollars today. It allowed me to live differently and make different choices.
Right. Yeah, that's such a valuable point, man. This financial freedom over net worth, that's such a big idea.
Yeah, it's a game changer when you really put it into practice.
Because if you have a big net worth and you have no life, you're a prisoner to the world that you've built. Yeah. Then you get to brag about that big number maybe, but that doesn't give you the day-to-day options that you have when you're free to go to the gym and spend some time with people that you love, and you don't resent the business that you've built.
Yeah, and there are two sides of this net worth. There's the one side where it's like, well, I don't know if I can ever have that, so I'm just going to count myself out. Well, we don't have to focus on net worth. You don't have to focus on being a millionaire. Focus on covering your mortgage. Right? Focus on covering your groceries and your utilities and your car payment. And, so for those that don't have a big net worth, I feel like it's more inviting. You can see the possibility much more so than being worth 10 million or 100 million or 500 million. But on the flip side, I know a ton of people that have a huge net worth, but their money's tied up. It's locked up. So there's no utility on those dollars. They've got a business that's worth a lot, but they can't extract the money out until they have an exit. But because their business is so reliant upon them, the value of their business isn't anywhere close in the real world as what they may think it's worth or what they may even list on their personal financial statement, right? You have a lot of people that, put their money in the markets, but, inside of qualified plans. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that, with the exception of I don't believe it should be your entire portfolio. It could be a sliver of it, but those dollars you can't use until you're retired. So it's locked up. There's no utility today in those dollars. So for me, the net worth number is like what everyone uses to track. It's like with business. People, they brag about their business and the success of their business based on revenue, which is a horrible indicator for how successful a business is. Because we both know people that have huge revenue businesses that do no profit, little in profit, or even have a negative burn.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, net worth is that same thing, where net worth is this big number that makes you look good, sound good, but the utility in play is not the same as having true passive income.
Yeah. What do you think is the most important habit for somebody who's building wealth? They have the 50 grand, they have the cash flow quadrant idea, they go get the roadmap that you talked about on your website, which is awesome, by the way. I love that you created that resource. But if there was a habit, some type of like financial hygiene that they should be doing early on to start to build that passive wealth so they have financial freedom, what would that or a couple of those habits be?
Well, I think the most important thing for me has been my network.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd say peer group and mentorship trump everything.
Yeah.
If you have the right peer group, they're going to stretch you. They're going to get you access to things you otherwise wouldn't have access to. They're going to be smarter than you in a lot of areas of life that you can learn from. Same thing with mentorship. And mentorship, I want to be very careful because there are a lot of coaches out there and a lot of mentors out there that charge and make money in areas that they're not experts. And so I think when I say mentorship, I mean someone that's done it themselves for decades, that has a track record, that has proven success, that can really coach you along, right? So peer groups, mentorships, to me, there's nothing even close to that. And for me early on, I didn't have that, so I got it from books.
Mm-hmm.
And if podcasts existed when I was younger, I would have gotten it from podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I listen to a ton today, but back when I was trying to figure out who my peer group was, like how do I upgrade the expertise and level of success in the people that I associate with? Like, how do I learn? How do I grow? That's where I got started. And then I got more intentional with who's actually in my network. Who are my top 5? Who are my top 10? Who's my cabinet of 12? Who's my inner circle of 3? Yeah. That has been, probably of anything I've done, the most impactful thing.
What's your favorite podcast for dads?
Front Row Dads, for sure. I was going to have fun and be like, ooh, that's a tough one,
Awesome, man. Talk to me about the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. What about that book?
So the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, this was like the next big wave for me. This is the book that was like my modern day next level of growth.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend Eric Jorgensen wrote it through, tweets and commentary by Naval Ravikant, who I think is one of the most prolific investors out there. I'm an investor with him in his original fund. I've learned a lot from him over the years. Whenever he speaks, I listen. He's just wise beyond his years and does it for the right reasons. He actually doesn't like the stardom. He tries to, stay in the shadows but really wants to serve. And so at our last event, we had Eric Jorgensen and Sieva of Enduring Ventures come and do a really cool thing. We did a session on buying and selling businesses, and so they came. But Eric talked a lot about the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, and I wanted to highlight it because it had such a profound impact on me from the standpoint of like building wealth and having happiness, and the two likely, one doesn't necessarily lead to the other,
mm-hmm.
and the importance of being healthy and fit, and they get into a lot of things there with like, utilizing leverage, and their world of leverage. What Naval talks about is people, capital, code, and media. Those being the 4 major leverage points of ways that you can, really take things to the next level. And so for me early on, it was people, and then it became capital. But I had never done anything with code or with media.
Break those two down real quick.
Well, code could be something as simple as, you're building software, you've got a company, you've got, for me, like a website is basically a bunch of code, right?
Is it your unique offering? Like what makes you unique, the code piece?
So the code piece could be, it could be what makes you unique. I mean, I think the book talks a lot about what is your uniqueness and where are you naturally curious. But I think, code from the standpoint of like creating wealth is, it's a different, in the past, there were limited ways to be able to build wealth. Today, you can use code. You can build a company, build a software out of code. You can build a website. You can monetize the website. You can monetize the code. You can, from a media standpoint, all these influencers are using the media path, right? And there's ways that you can kind of grow your following and share your knowledge. And authorship, would be an example of that, right? Writing books or having a podcast like you or I have. And these all live on. So one of the cool things about this type of, leverage in general, but it's like this lives out in the world. You never know when someone's going to find it. You could put all this content out for years and years and years. No one knows anything about it. I mean, this is great. Like our good buddy Hal Elrod wrote The Miracle Morning, and that book was not an instant success. That book took a lot of time before it became a success. And in many regards, over that first year, you might say like, well, he missed it. Like if it was any other business, it wouldn't have made it. But because he kept on promoting it, talking about it, teaching it, all of a sudden it gained traction in year 2 and year 3. And then it, grew to be this unbelievable brand. But that's because it lived out there and people found it, So it's like, you never know when someone's going to find your podcast episode, find your book, find, a speech that you gave that someone has on their website or whatever. And so to me, it's just a beautiful way of creating really cool, information that can have impact. And whether it takes off or it doesn't take off, it is still kind of chronicled out there forever.
Yeah. Does people capital, code, and what was the last one?
People, capital, code, and media.
And media. And then the media would be simply just expanding your reach.
Yeah.
It's in all the ways. It's books, podcasts.
Yeah.
It's just getting the word out.
Yep. Advertising, marketing, brand awareness, website, speaking, books, podcasts, the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Courses.
Yeah. Do you think, when you think about somebody like Naval, how much of that do you think is natural ability, he lucked out, or because he's got the framework? And I'm sure it's all of it. I'm sure there's pieces of all of that in there. But, how would you break down like his success?
Well, he's naturally smart. There's no doubt about that. It's interesting. I'm sure luck plays a role, but if you hear his childhood story, you would say, gosh, that sounds really unlucky, Right. So sometimes it's like the lack of luck that creates the struggle that then, at some point you do something about it. And for him, he was just a student. He just kept learning. I mean, so a lot of the parallels I see with myself and Naval, I'm nowhere close to as smart as him, but I'm probably I'm probably a highly curious person like him, So I always want to learn. I always want to understand things I don't know. And he's very much that way. And then he's able to take complex and distill it down into something more simple. And that's something that I work hard to be able to do. I think I have some gifting around that, not to his level, but I like taking complex topics. I like breaking it down and saying, well, actually here, this is all it means.
Right.
And I'll teach it that way, but also I'm learning it then that way. So like part of the reason I want to do that is so I get it, I understand it, and then the better I understand it, I can teach it. But, Naval talks a whole lot about it's not about like memorizing things. It's about learning it to the point of like understanding and comprehension, because then you don't have to memorize a thing.
Right.
And then you can build on it.
Right.
And I just think that that's so true. I mean, that's been the story for me. It's like once I can learn something, I don't ever have to try to remember it.
Yeah.
Like I know it. And when I learn how things work, why things work, and for me, it's like learning how money works, why it works, how does it compound, how do you utilize it, how can you use it as a tool? A lot of people look at it as like, this thing's going to run out. And I look at it as like, it's actually, there's a ton of it. There's a lot of ways to make it. And the amount of ways to make money is infinite.
Right.
And I'd like to figure out every possible way I can because it's fun.
Yeah. On that note of making money, being financially savvy, your book does a great job breaking down, your investment philosophies. So your book came out with a new edition.
That's right.
Did any of your philosophies change?
No, everything stayed the same in the book. I expanded. So there's probably about 30% more content in the book. So it's just a much more robust book. But all the 10 commandments stayed the same. I added some stories. I added some deals. I added some updates. I talked about AI. I talked about different types of investing. So getting more into venture, talked about estate planning, talked about tax strategy. I mean, just added all these different components into it that people at some point are probably going to deal with. At some point, they'll probably want to learn. And the goal is that it appeals to anyone. You could be a total novice, know absolutely nothing about money and investing. And there's a glossary in the back that, I'd have a lot of people tell me, I've dog-eared this thing, and I go back and I look because you define these things in a way that I understand it.
Yeah.
But it's also for someone that has a lot of experience as well, where someone may know a lot about investing, but they may not have gone as deep down the rabbit hole as I have in many of the deals or many of the asset classes that I have invested in, over the last 15, 20 years.
You have a pretty remarkable track record in Lifestyle Investor for deals.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah. Well, no one wins them all. I mean, there are going to be deals that go bad. If you're an investor, you just have to know at some point you're going to lose. Like a deal's going to go bad, and as painful as it is, those deals have always been the best learning lesson for me. So I'm glad before I ever started Lifestyle Investor, I had lost plenty of money. So I'd figured things, I had the pain of doing it wrong and being reminded I didn't have it all figured out.
Right.
But our community has just done such a great job. We have really smart people that help vet deals. We've got, we spend about $300,000 a year on our due diligence, partners and in-house and external that help us, kind of go through deals. But we have a 94+% success rate right now on all the deals that we have done over the last 7 years. And if you add the rest of my deals in prior to, it's about the same in success rate based on deals that have gone full cycle or based on how they're performing according to the pro forma. Are they underperforming? Are they at the pro forma, meaning what was projected for that deal, or are they performing above it? And so I'm just really proud of our community and the people that we work with, that we've been able to have a lot of success. Now, we haven't won them all. We've had a few that have not gone well, and that's just kind of part of it. But the whole goal is that you make more right decisions than wrong decisions. And, I look at like the deals that go bad as like battles, but the overall portfolio win as the war.
That's
right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take like, by the way, our numbers could change, by next year. Maybe we have more that go bad. So we've had a really good run.
Yeah.
And we have a lot that are trending really well. But if you don't continue to sharpen your skills as an investor and pay attention to the economic season and the changes that happen, you'll be in for a rude awakening. So my goal is to just stay on top of what is happening, what's happening with the economy, what's happening with, wars and the impact of that, what's happening with interest rates, what's happening with inflation, what asset classes are thriving, what are getting hurt, what's been overvalued, what's undervalued, what are trends that are so early that they haven't caught on. It's early stage, so you might be able to catch that,
Right.
before it becomes mainstream. What are the invisible deals? What are the off-market deals? Where is there stress in the market where you can come in and help out someone that's in need, but have some good upside? So there's a lot of ways to look at it. But if you don't keep sharpening the sword, you're bound to find yourself in trouble because every decade it changes.
Yeah.
Sometimes faster.
Yeah. Lots of change. You have the commandments. I'm going to read them real quick as like a preview for people in the book too. And then I want to ask if there are, if they're weighted all equally, or you think there's one commandment that's more important than another. So commandment number 1, lifestyle first. Commandment number 2, reduce the risk. Commandment 3, find invisible deals. Number 4, get the principal back quickly. 5, create cash flow immediately. 6, find an income amplifier. 7, plus the deal. 8, cut out the fat. 9, use leverage to your advantage. And 10, every dollar of investment gets a return. Are there more important commandments than others?
It's interesting. I think depending on someone's stage in their investment journey, their stage in life, it could be the case. I mean, we have a lot of people that have an aha where I talk about in Commandment 5, which is get your principal back quickly, this aha around the velocity of money, because a lot of people think, oh, you want to invest for a long time and then, compound that return over time.
Right.
And I kind of lay out a scenario or a strategy where I want to get my invested principal back as fast as possible so I can recycle and invest it into the next deal.
Yeah.
And by doing so, now I have equity with the same dollars in more than one deal, and you can compound that over the years. And so over the last 6 or so years, we've had just tons of people say that one was so counterintuitive to anything they've learned, the things that they have done. So that one I think is kind of like a fun one. The reason lifestyle first is the first commandment is because that's so important to me. Like, I want to make sure that I'm being authentic to my brand and who I am and how I want to show up. In other words, I don't want to invest in something that ends up being a job and take more of my time. If you do one of those, it could be trouble. If you have a whole bunch of them, you could be in a world of hurt. And so I just really want to do things that amplify my lifestyle. They don't subtract from my lifestyle. They don't take away from family time. They don't create too much complexity. And so that's super important to me. If you look at the second commandment, I can make an argument that that's the most important thing, because instead of always focusing on the biggest returns, focus on just not losing money. Right? How do you just not lose? Because if you adjust and minimize the risk, you don't have to get big returns to have a big compounding growth in your portfolio of investments. So I love that one, but probably where I got ahead in life was commandment 4, which is cash flow immediately, right? That when I make an investment in a deal, I want cash flow from that deal. Otherwise, I'm probably not going to invest in it until I can get my cash flow over my lifestyle. And at first it was, I got to get my survival income. What does it cost me to survive? And then it was, how do I get to my lifestyle? And then it was, how do I get to my ideal lifestyle, right? And so I think that one's important because the utility of cash flow just trumps, for me, any big long-term potential compounded return, because that's not given. But the money I get today, that's given. That de-risks the deal, and I can use it today. So I love that. And the last commandment of every dollar gets, earns an investment is basically, I want to learn from everyone. So this isn't just money in deals. This is money that I spend with professionals. This is like, if I'm hiring a coach, like, that is an investment in me. If I'm joining a mastermind, that's an investment in me and my peer group. If I'm hiring a world-class attorney, well, I'm going to learn from that attorney. I'm going to tell him right out of the gates, don't do this for me, but teach me rather what you're doing. right? So
Yeah.
I will spend money, and I will spend a lot of money on those things because I want to be in the best of class camp.
Right.
So whoever's doing their thing, I want to spend with, invest with whoever's best at that thing.
Yep.
And then I want to learn from them.
Yeah. So interesting. I think about like plumbers I've hired to come over, or electricians, and I ask them to watch them
Yeah.
because I want them to do it, but I want them to show me what they're doing. Yeah.
That's right.
That's cool.
And at a certain point, you can build the competency that now you get it, you can handle those things, and then you hire out the next tier of issues that you can't handle, right? So I don't want to have to keep repaying for things I know how to do. Like if I've hired enough attorneys to figure out how to do so many things like in real estate or closing a deal or whatever, I know how to do a lot of that now.
Right.
So now I can just do it and say, did I do anything wrong here?
Yep.
So now I'm using 10 minutes of their time, not hours of their time. But instead of having them work on that, it's like, well, hey, is there anything I'm missing? Or, hey, I was thinking about doing a simultaneous transaction, right? I don't know how to do that. Can I loop you in? Or I was thinking about doing a 1031 exchange. How do I loop, a professional in on that? And so, yeah, I want to be the constant student. I just want to learn.
Yeah. When did the book originally come out?
Let's see. I think it came out in 2020.
Okay. So about 5 years.
Yeah, January of 2020.
How has the book changed your life? What's changed for you as a result of the book itself?
I had a friend tell me that there's life before becoming an author and life after becoming an author. And I was like, that is just a bunch of garbage.
Yeah.
You are never going to get me to believe that. And I just did not think it was true.
Yeah.
There is so much truth in that statement. I am just blown away.
Yeah.
The moment you have a book, there's this level of perceived authority, whether you've earned it or not, whether you have it or not, there is perceived authority. And now you are an expert to some in an area. So you do need to be careful with this, right?
Yeah.
Especially for people that are writing on things that they're not experts at. And there's a lot of that out there. But it has opened up the world to, it's opened me up to so many other people in the world. It's opened up the world's playbook, I feel like, where it gives me access to other people. People will say, hey, I want to introduce you to someone. They probably wouldn't have done that if they hadn't come across me or read my book. They have deals and they're like, hey, I'd love for you to check this out. Or do you want to come in on this deal with me? It has become, a really cool, I guess, feeder to the Lifestyle Investor Mastermind, which, without the success of the book, I don't know that we'd have that type of success in the mastermind. Right.
How many people come to the mastermind because they read the book?
That's still the majority of people. So,
really?
So the book is number one. We still sell a ton of copies of the book. It's crazy. Every month, it's like, I thought it was going to die down and be non-existent, but yeah, we're still selling thousands of copies of this book, which is really crazy.
Wow.
So the book's number one, the podcast is number two, and then personal referrals is number three.
Yeah.
And then speaking's number four.
And I'd imagine that the personal referrals also are supported by the book and the podcast. Somebody refers them and says, you should read this book or you should listen to the podcast. And then that supports the personal endorsement.
Yep, 100%.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm excited about doing some books this next year.
Yeah.
Al and I have talked about The Miracle Morning for Dads.
Ooh.
We've talked about, talking with Levesque about a book he and I working on together.
Love it.
Talking with Charlie Hohen about working with him on a book.
Charlie's the man.
Yeah, he is the man.
Shout out to him. Shout out to the work he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Super cool. Big stuff. So, talk to me about also how this book has impacted your family. Like, I know early on, and I think you mentioned it in the book, that this was, written in many ways so that if anything ever happened to you, this is a gift for Savannah. And you don't have to talk about that specifically being the impact for her, but, do you find that by writing this book, this has impacted your family, and if so, in what ways?
Yeah, it is really neat to see when, for me, it's my daughter, but, for you, it's your kids. It's like for them to see and learn that you might be an area a domain expert in something. It's like, she thinks it's really cool that I've written a book. Now, one of the cool things, no one knows this. In fact, I have not mentioned this publicly. So this is literally the first time I mention it, but I'm in the process of writing a kid's book with Ryan Casey right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Lifestyle Investor Kids book. And we are planning to have that completed by our September, fall retreat.
Nice.
And so I've involved her in that process. So she thinks it's fun. She's going to be one of the characters in that book. We've got 4 kids that kind of have different backgrounds and different personalities, and it's been a really fun project. And I think we're going to have each of the kids come on stage at our event and like read a little bit of the book as like our little promotion and launch of it. So she thinks it's really, really cool. And I think it inspires her. Like, I may be putting words in her mouth, but I think the book has inspired some creativity in her. I mean, this is the reason I wrote the book. Our good mutual friend, John Kane, is the one that really like pushed me over the edge. He's like, I've been telling you for years, you should write a book. All your friends have been telling you this. Yeah. And you keep saying you'll get to it at some point, but it never felt like, I don't know, I just never felt like I was an author. I never felt the urgency in it. We were walking Town Lake one day and he's like, what if you die and Savannah never knows anything about what you've learned about investing and passive income and creating wealth? And it was that comment. The next day I started writing it. And so, yeah, I do have a tribute to, my wife and daughter in the book. And really that was it. That was the catalyst. Because I was like, I can get the motivation to write a book that way. Like, I'm doing it for her, not for me. Now, I never in a million years would have dreamed it'd become as big as it has. As of today, based on volume, a top 1% of all books ever sold. And as you mentioned earlier, all the proceeds go to fight human trafficking. So a lot of impact has happened here. And I can't even imagine having not written it. But I'm so thankful that my daughter was the motivation to get it done, and that now I'm seeing the impact of the book, because it has created a lot of really cool things for our family, opportunities, experiences. My wife made the joke the other day. She's like, people give you free stuff all the time. And she's like, where was all this stuff when we needed it?
Right.
And it was kind of comical because now we don't need it, but now it's, it's like trips and planes and events and experiences and hotel rooms and upgrades and, the whole 9 yards. And so there's a cool element of what that has created for the family. But then it's also neat seeing the power of reading, and what that's done for my daughter, and just her knowing about this book, I think gives her some insight and hope that she could do it. I mean, she's written some of her first short stories and they're good. They're really good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's sweet, man. It's so good to hear. Did rewriting the book, by the way, give it a pop in sales?
Yeah, it did. We didn't the whole purpose of it was to add to it because I just felt like there was too much left out. I had so many questions and I was like, oh, I should have included that. Or just I'm in a different place today. I know things I didn't know then. They need to be in the book. So it was more that, I mean, we never did a formal push. We never did a formal launch party. We never relaunched it. We never did a, crazy blitz or anything like that. 'Cause the goal was never to sell more copies. The goal for me was to finish the product. I want it to be as complete as it can be.
Yep.
And what's really neat is we have so many free, gifts or excerpts or pieces of the book that actually should be in the book that we decided to never put in the book that people can just download when they get it. So it's literally content that was going to be in or was at one point in time in the book that we removed. So we've got really high value, quality, free content out there.
Yeah. And one of them is the roadmap.
Well, right? The roadmap's just a separate product, but we break that down in a lot more detail I guess the roadmap's probably the more comprehensive version of it, but we have it broken down in a written version. So that's part of it. Estate planning's part of it. Venture investing, I think, is part of it. Asset allocation. There are a number of things. I think I can't remember if we put tax strategy in the book or if we ended up keeping that as a free item. But if you go to lifestyleinvestor.com/gift, I think that's the link where you get all the free resources, and it's a lot of pages of content.
How old is Savannah now?
She's 12 and a half.
So at 12 and a half, what's your thinking as dad around introducing her to these concepts? Is it, hey, I'll wait till she asks me about it? Is it, hey, we need to start early? Like I need to push these concepts onto her, whether she likes it or not. Do you face that currently? Is there a strategy for you as to bestowing wisdom and teaching her whether she wants to or not?
It's a great question. I have learned that whenever I want to teach something, she does not want to receive it. So Savannah can be very stubborn in a good way. I tell her all the time, this is a superpower that's going to serve you so well. In this moment, I don't feel like it's serving you, but it's going to serve you really well. So there are things that I need to teach in a way that doesn't feel like teaching, so it can be learned. And I do take a proactive approach with that. She has asked more questions recently than before. We've started watching Shark Tank as a family, and she's gotten into it. So now I've been trying to teach her this stuff for years. Now she's asking me the questions. And so it's becoming a lot easier to teach some concepts, which is cool. And I can reference back to the book. So when she's in a learning mode, she's hungry and she has endless questions, and it's awesome because it reminds me of me. But anytime maybe she feels like I'm getting preachy, or like being a teacher when she doesn't want to be a student, she just tunes it out. And so I have learned I've got to be, strategic and creative and patient. And sometimes that's really hard.
That's really cool. Do you get a lot of questions in your community from your members about talking to kids? Is that what led to the kids' book? So we certainly do. Part of the reason that we started these other tiers of the mastermind were to help solve for some of that. So, you've got Lifestyle Investor, which is kind of like our flagship product, mastermind community, the podcast, the book, the courses, everything's under that brand. We have kind of like a, we'll call it a JV to Lifestyle Investor called Tribe of Investors. And that's a mastermind where people aren't quite at that next level yet, but they can get started. It helps them get ahead to be able to, move later into Lifestyle Investor. And then because we just got nonstop feedback that, hey, I'd love to teach my kids this, or can you get them involved? Can you do a program for kids? That's why we rolled out Lifestyle Investor Foundations, which is our young adults program, and that's for 18 to 35-year-olds. So the goal was maybe more adult kids, but we've got a bunch of members that have brought in some of their, we've got a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old that are part of it. And for members, I mean, we want to support their family. So the whole first launch of it, the first 20 or 30 people in Foundations were all kids of our mastermind members. They're all Lifestyle Investor members' kids. That's brilliant. Let's start to wrap by talking about the future and like where you're being called to. So tell me about purpose, vision, and what's to come.
Well, I'm always trying to paint a compelling vision of the future for myself, for my family. I tend to get bored when I feel like I have mastered a subject or a concept. And so I feel stagnant when I feel like I know not everything in an area, but like enough to be well versed. And then I need to go into these different areas, these different arenas to be able to learn. Like I feel like I'm at my best when I am a student. I'm a novice at something, whatever the thing is. I just feel like I need to be reminded what it's like to be starting at ground zero and kind of like build my knowledge, build my confidence. So I'm always looking for ways that I can do that. Sometimes it's in the business, sometimes it's outside the business. So it could be personal. Pickleball was that, and I put in some hours, so I'm a lot better now than what I was in the beginning. But inside the business, it's like I've never written a kid's book. Well, one of the main markets that could have the most impact of anything I ever do in my entire life could be writing a kid's book.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's cool. And then, but it's a different writing style, right? I've got to teach it differently. The stories have to be different. The examples have to be different. So it's like, I feel like a total novice, not knowing what the heck I'm doing, trying to write a kid's book.
Right.
And that's fun for me. I like meeting these other families that are running laps around what I've done, so I can think bigger. I can see the decisions they're making. I can see the problems they have, and I can try and tackle them early. That's really fun for me. So, I see so much opportunity. One of our potential focuses is on the pro athletes market. So as you know, I've spoken with and interacted with a bunch of pro athletes inside of PAC, the pro athlete community. And this year, I've been invited to the ESPYs in July, and I'm doing a wealth creation event literally right before the ESPYs with a ton of pro athletes.
That's huge.
And so, we've got some pro athletes in the mastermind, but we're, the reality is there's probably a huge opportunity to have a division just for pro athletes, because I feel like that's an underserved, demographic where there are a lot of predators. And what's great is I don't have products for them. I'm not trying to sell them on anything. I'm just trying to teach simple concepts, but foundational concepts that will help them make better decisions with investing and compounding wealth, multiplying their wealth, and to not be taken advantage of by so many of the predators in the financial services industry that do a real disservice to them.
Right. Yeah. Because the incentives are aligned in places that may not be of best interest to the client.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I mean, I think there is always a danger when you can make money on other people's money.
Yeah.
There's always a self-interest element that exists there. And that's why for Lifestyle Investor, I want to be the one place that doesn't exist, where I'll never make money on anyone else's money. The only reason I make money is because I put my own money in a deal.
Right.
There's no, and the terms that I get are the terms that everyone gets.
Yeah.
And so I don't even want the temptation of being incentivized on other people's money. I think I would make the right choice, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? I don't even want that temptation.
Yeah.
I don't want in a moment of weakness to make a poor choice, So, anytime you can make money on someone else's money, it's a slippery slope. And I think for those of you that are investing with people that make money on your money, whether it be assets under management or whether it be a fee, I'm not saying that that's bad. I think you just have to investigate the incentive structure and what that looks like. And are these individuals investing their own money in these same things, or are they just making money off of your money in those things? That really matters.
What should a young investor avoid? What's the pitfall that they need to stay away from? You talk about people that have misaligned incentives. What would you tell somebody to watch out for?
Well, if the only thing you ever did when you bought my book was read the chapter on Murphy's Laws for the Lifestyle Investor, I would just read that. It's, I think it's 25 different items listed out of what to beware of. Here are all the dangers out there, mistakes I have personally made, reasons that I have lost money or made poor choices, and I have them all listed there. Simple things like, if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yeah.
And the list goes on and on and on. But I made so many mistakes early days trying to get ahead, focus too much on the return. I think too many people try to optimize all of their money and get the best return they can on all of their money. That's not what the wealthiest people do. Mm-hmm. The wealthiest people allocate a small percentage to risky deals and a much larger percentage to low risk deals. Mm-hmm. They allocate, 15 to 25% in the stock market. That's it. Most of them do not go more than that. They put generally 20 to 30% in private equity. They generally put 5 to 15% in private credit. They generally put 10 to 20% in real estate. I've seen it as high as 30%. They put, generally 5 to 10% in fixed income, 5 to 10% that sits in cash or cash equivalents, 1% in precious metals, 1% in oil and gas, 1% in infrastructure. They put 1 to 5% in Bitcoin. And so if you look at that whole portfolio, each of them has a little different of a return, whereas most people are putting all this money in super high risk, early stage. Like venture is early stage. You rarely see billionaires, single family offices with more than a 10% allocation to venture.
Right.
It's usually 4 to 10%. The riskiest of all the deals is early stage, so seed investing or angel investing. And you rarely see family offices that put more than 1% of their net worth into that. Yeah. And so it's, and then when I go and talk to people, they're putting most of their life savings in risky deals, but they don't know they're risky and they don't know that they're not going to work out for 10, 15, 20 years. And by that time, they realize it, they've now lost all that money because they kept doing the strategy not knowing it was broken.
Right.
And so I just think if people can figure that out, and this is why I'm such a huge proponent of cash flow. Like if you can cover your life, well, that's one thing you just don't have to worry about then.
Yeah.
Well, now any surplus income that comes above lifestyle, you can start funneling into other investments. And for me, I don't do any high risk investing or early stage investing unless it's surplus income from my assets that produce income, right? So if it costs me $150,000 to live or $350,000 to live, it'd be whatever dollars above that come in like clockwork because it's based on, asset income that's producing every month or every quarter. It's that surplus dollar that goes over into the high risk investment.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd rather do low risk investment and just get a reasonable return.
Right.
But I see too many times people swinging for the fences with all their money or most of their money or putting it all back in their business that likely isn't going to work. It's unfortunate. There's not a lot of education out there on the ways that the wealthiest people, the single family offices, the billionaire class actually invest. And that's what my goal is to democratize the way billionaires invest so people like us can invest and mimic those patterns, those asset classes, those asset allocation percentages.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Is there anything we didn't talk about that's worth saying?
Oh man, I feel like we knocked it out. I mean, for anyone that wants to learn more, we always do these strategy sessions or $500 strategy sessions for your community, which, this is my community too, right? It's like your people are my people, or, it's tons of front row dads. I'd love to offer it for free. So book a strategy session, go to lifestyleinvestor.com/consultation, and you can meet with someone on our team and I can kind of help you get from A to B on wherever you're at, but it'll be a dedicated call with one person on our team and with you. And if you want to bring your spouse, bring your spouse.
That's awesome, man. I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Brother, I just want to wrap by saying it's good to sit with you. Happy birthday, man. So,
thank you.
So appreciate your life. So grateful that I just get year after year to hang with you. Sorry, I missed your birthday. I was at an event. For everybody listening, I was at an event and my phone was off, and then it was a heck of a week, which I'll explain more of that on a future podcast. There was a lot going on.
You had a lot on your mind.
I have not missed your birthday. I don't know if I've missed it ever.
I don't think you ever have,
but I did miss it this year.
Yeah.
So I confess that I missed it, and yet I'm glad I'm here in person with you and able to wish you happy birthday. And
this is awesome, and we've got so much history. But for those of you that don't know, become good friends with John because he is the best birthday wisher there is. He's just one of the best with words, and just he will tell the tale of like your relationship and the meaning that it has to him. And I appreciate that. And you do that regularly, whether it's someone's birthday or not. You're so good at saying, hey, can I just tell you what I love about you?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I appreciate your friendship, and you're one of my closest friends. So it's always an honor to be on your show and get time with you.
Yeah. Love you, buddy.
Love
Thank you so
too.
much.
Thanks for listening today, fellas. If you got value from this episode, I ask that you take 1 second right now and you share this with another dad in your life that you respect, that you know is committed to becoming a better man, family man, and businessman. And on that note, I want to honor you for choosing growth. Your family will thank you years from now for all the effort that you're putting in to learn the strategies so you can show up more fully for them today. Take care.